On August 4th, 1987, Joy White and Carl Tyson rushed their newborn daughter, Carlina, to the hospital due to a fever. Little did they know that their lives were about to be changed forever. Carlina Renee White was born in the Harlem neighborhood of New York City on July 15, 1987. Her parents were thrilled about the new addition to their family, but when she was just about 19 days old, she developed a high fever. She was rushed to the hospital where doctors discovered she had an infection from swallowing fluid during her birth. She was placed on intravenous antibiotics to fight the infection, and Joy and Carl waited anxiously for the news of their daughter's condition. Between 2:30 a.m. and 3:55, someone removed the IV from Carlina and abducted her from the hospital. Though the hospital had a surveillance system, it was not working at the time of the abduction, and there were few potential witnesses. Later, Carl recalled that a woman wearing a nurse's uniform directed them upon their arrival, and he saw her again while looking for a phone to update his parents on their granddaughter's condition. Carl and Joy decided that she would stay at the hospital with the baby, but she needed to get some things from home first. As reported in the news, Carl dropped his girlfriend at her house and returned home to try and get some sleep. He had just managed to doze off when he got the news. It was the police calling from Joy's apartment. They told him his daughter was missing while his girlfriend screamed in the background. It was the first time an infant had been abducted from a New York hospital, and no one knew how it happened. Nurses said they had checked on Carlina every 5 minutes and had discovered she was missing at 3:40 a.m. Details began to emerge that for several months a strange woman had been seen at the hospital. She passed herself off as a nurse, and even the other nurses believed her. It was the same woman who had given Carl directions earlier. A security guard had seen someone matching the woman's description leave the hospital around 3:30 a.m. She didn't have a baby with her, but he believed it was possible that the missing infant had been hidden in her smock. The last thing Joy could recall about the woman was a bizarre comment she had made as her newborn daughter was being admitted. "The baby don't cry for you, you cry for the baby." She now believed it was the woman's attempt to get rid of her. Police began a thorough investigation, and for a while they thought they had a suspect. But they soon came to a dead end, and the case of Carlina White's kidnapping went cold. The mysterious nurse from the hospital was Anugeta Petway of Bridgeport, Connecticut. Anne had been in trouble with the law several times as a teen on charges of larceny, theft, and forgery, but police who knew her said she wasn't a hellraiser. As an adult, she struggled with drug addiction. In 1987, she told her friends she was pregnant, and a friend later said Anne had left town for a while before returning with a child. Friends and family assumed she'd gone elsewhere to give birth to the baby, presumed to be the daughter of her on-again, off-again boyfriend Robert Nance. Carlina grew up believing her name was Nedra Nance. She spent her childhood in Bridgeport before she and Anne moved to Atlanta, Georgia. Growing up, she sometimes wondered if Anne was her real mother. Her skin was much lighter than Anne's, and though relatives often called her little Anne, she didn't see a physical resemblance at all. Later, the NYPD said Nedra Nance was very suspicious of who she was and what family raised her. There was no paperwork to follow her, such as a birth certificate or social security card. In her late teens, she became suspicious of who she was. In 2005, Carlina became pregnant. To secure medical assistance from the state, she had to provide her original birth certificate. So she asked Anne for the document, but she couldn't provide it. After she pressed her about it for several days, Anne finally gave her the birth certificate. But when Carlina tried to submit it, officials said it was a forgery. Anne finally confessed to Carlina that she wasn't her biological mother. She claimed that Carlina was abandoned by her mother at birth. She kept repeating, "She left you and never came back." For the next year, she kept pressing Anne for more details about her birth mother, but Anne claimed she couldn't remember anything. At that point, Carlina was 23 years old and started scouring the internet for clues as to her true identity. At first, Carlina only searched for kidnappings that had occurred near Bridgeport. It wasn't until 2010 that she visited the NCMEC website and expanded her search outside of her home state. There she found a photo of a baby who had been kidnapped in 1987 and looked like just her own daughter, Samani. The infant even had the same birthmark. The Connecticut Post reported that Anne's sister Cassandra Johnson helped Carlina reach out in December in 2010. The centre quickly contacted Joy and Carl to inform them that their long-lost daughter was found. NCMEC reached out to the parents just before Christmas 2011. DNA testing was performed to confirm that Carlina was indeed their child. Joy said, "I just always believed that she would find me. That was something I always believed in myself, that she would come and find me, and that's the same way I thought it would happen." For the next few weeks, Carlina was in constant contact with her birth parents, but she sometimes struggled to form a relationship with them. She recalled, "The mum had that mother instinct. The dad is like I was talking to a stranger." The family continued to try and build a relationship, and Carlina flew to New York to meet them for the first time. Her mother picked her up at the airport and she was welcomed by her extended family with open arms. Carlina's grandmother said, "It was wonderful. She didn't even seem like a stranger. She just fit right in. We all went up there. We had dinner together. Her aunts were there. She brought her beautiful daughter. It was magic." After a quick visit, Carlina returned to the airport to catch her flight back to Atlanta. Before she boarded her plane, she was stopped by a police detective who told her that the DNA testing was positive and they were indeed her parents. When national news broke of the reunion, she flew back to New York to do a series of interviews which she felt forced parts of a new relationship that hadn't developed yet. She began to think about Anne, who at the time was on the run from the FBI. Carolina pulled away from her birth parents and returned to Atlanta. On January 23, 2011, Anne turned herself in to the FBI after a warrant was issued for her arrest. According to the Times, Anne explained that she kidnapped Carolina after suffering several miscarriages in an attempt to fill the emptiness they left behind. Carolina recognised that she caused her biological family pain when she pulled away after meeting them, but she was overwhelmed by the media attention and felt guilt about abandoning the family who raised her. Now, after legally changing her name back to Carolina, she still answers to Nettie. She has reconnected with her biological parents but admits that she still has love for the woman she called Mum for the first 23 years of her life.